Well, hello everybody. What I'd like to do with you today is I'd like to review Chapter 6 with you. So what you'll need to have in front of you, you'll definitely need a graphing calculator. You'll need that Day 8 review class worksheet. And then also have in front of you one of those half sheets that we've been practicing, our square roots, our cube roots, and our fourth roots, because I'll review that a little bit with you also. And guys, the way I've structured this video, I'll do some, and then I'd like for you to hit pause, and then you try a few, you and your friend, and then resume the video, and on the next slide I have the answers for you to check. So I'll do a little bit, you can do a little bit. So here goes. If you would, flip over to your number 1. I need to review with you how we're going to graph the square root function. Now, overall, these were pretty easy. Remember, we start with the capital T for translation, and then I need you to remember this. I need you to remember that whatever part's under the radical, that's going to shift it left or right. So in this case, it's going to shift it 2 units to the right, and then down 3 units. 2 units to the right, down 3. Now this 2 out front doesn't mean anything to us yet. We'll use it here in just a second. Now, when we make our ordered pair, the first point that you need at the top then is 2 comma negative 3. Now, in your graphing calculator, we're going to graph that. So when you type this in, I'm going to type in my 2. I'm going to go second square root. Now here's where you got to be careful. I'm going to go x minus 2, and that's the part under the radical. Now I don't want to be under the radical anymore, so I'm going to hit the right arrow and then minus 3. So guys, I should see something that's been shifted 2 units to the right and down 3. Now, you can go ahead and hit graph and see what your graph looks like. I want you to remember though, 2 to the right and down 3, it starts right there and then goes. Now, we're going to go into our table now, and you're going to fix it to where the number 2 is at the top. And then your job now is to go get me 3 additional nice points. So 2 negative 3 we already have. So let me move my calculator over here. My next ordered pair is I'm going to need 3 negative 1. And then I'm going to need that 6 1 right there. And then I'm going to scroll down until I find my last nice point, which is at 11 3. So the next ordered pairs that I need 3 negative 1, I need 6 1, I need 11 3. Now we're just going to graph it. Here's my starting point at 2 negative 3. I've got 3 negative 1, I've got 6 1, and then I've got 11 3. Now, there's nothing down here. My square root graph starts here and looks like that. Now, come on down and let's list the domain. The domain asks what x values are we using. If you list it as a translation, your domain will always be this number to infinity. My range in this case says what y values are being used. Well, I'm using negative 3 to infinity. Notice that I put the 2 and the negative 3 in brackets. That means they're used, they're included. And then of course the infinities aren't. Now, right below that I say find the inverse also. So, let me review how to find the inverse. It's been a while since we've had this. You have that little sheet of paper that I cut up, probably about a quarter of a sheet. Remember step number 1. Rewrite f of x as y, so I got y equal 2 times x minus 2 minus 3, and then we switch the x and the y. So I got x equal 2 square root y minus 2 minus 3. Now, your next step in this case is get the square root by itself. That way we could square both sides. So I need to get rid of this 3 first, so I'm going to add 3, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So I got rid of that and that. So now I'm at this point right there. Now we're going to square both sides. Now to square this, guys, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to write x plus 3, quantity squared, over 2 squared, which is 4, Now I'm going to set that equal to y minus 2. Because you square and square root, the square root goes away. Now here's my ending answer. So I need f negative 1 of x. That's our notation for inverse. I'm going to have x plus 3 quantity squared over 4. And I need to add 2. So there's the inverse. There's the inverse. So that's my number 1. Here's my number 2. Same thing. Let's list the translation first. Don't worry about this negative out front. That just tells me my graph's going to open downwards. But this is going to be shifted 3 units to the left and then up 7. So my top number is negative 3, negative 7, or negative 3, 7. Let's come into your calculator real fast. I'm going to clear that out. I'm going to hit the negative sign right here. I've got the square root of x plus 3. Get out from under the radical, plus 7. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit graph so you can kind of see what's happening. Notice that it's going to start, and this one opens downwards because of the negative. I'm going to come into my table, and I'm going to put negative 3 at the top. If you try to go any further, guys, you're going to see the word error anyway. So I need the ordered pair negative 3, 7. I also need negative 2, 6. I need 1, 5. And I need 6, 4. So looks like I needed negative 2, 6, 1, 5, and 6, 4. Let's graph those real fast. So I've got negative 3, 7. Negative 2, 6, 1, 5, and 6, 4. Now remember, starts there and goes that way. There's nothing up here, so don't continue that on. My domain, negative 3 to infinity. Now my range, since this thing opens down, my range is going to be negative infinity to positive 7. Notice how this is different than the first one. The biggest number I'm using is 7, and I'm using everything less. Now, let's find the inverse of this real fast. So I've got y equal the opposite of square root of x plus 3 plus 7. We're going to switch the x and the y. So I got the opposite of y plus 3 plus 7. Now we got to get the radical by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7. So I got rid of that. And I'm going to divide by negative 1 to get rid of this. And that's going to be equal to the square root of y plus 3. We're going to square both sides. So I've got x minus 7 quantity squared over 1. And I'm not even going to write that since it's over 1. And that's going to be equal to y plus 3. Ending answer. My inverse is going to be x minus 7 quantity squared minus 3. So guys, there we are reviewing the square root graphs. Now, if you would, pause the video, and then you and a friend work on number 3 and number 4. But I'd like for you to change number 3, get rid of this 3, so there's nothing there. So you're just dropping the 3. So I got square root of x plus 4 plus 5. So if you would, pause the video, you and your friend work on number 3 and number 4. After you unpause the video, you can move on up on it, and then you'll see what your solution should be to see if you're right or not. And welcome back from the video. Now, number 5 we haven't done yet, but yesterday when I was teaching class, I just gave it to them, and then everybody in the class figured it out. So think about this. It says, write the equation of a square root function that would have a domain of 5 to infinity and a range of negative 7 to infinity. So I'm going to start off with f of x equal. Now, for it to have a domain of 5 to infinity, it must have been shifted 5 units to the right. So I need a minus 5 in there. To have a range of negative 7 to infinity, it must have been shifted down 7. And then you're done. That's all there is to number 5. Now, on this next little group, we spent 2 days reducing the radicals. On day 1, it was really easy. Everything was either a perfect square or a perfect cube or a perfect fourth. And the index number nicely went into the powers. So that's the case here on number 6 through 11. On 6 through 11, we don't need 2 radicals like we used in class the other day. That's coming up in a minute. So this is where you'll go to your little half sheet of paper, look at the square root one, which will be your top one, and then we're just going to go. The square root of 144 is 12, and be doing all these without a calculator. 12 divided by 2, remember guys, if there's no number there, there's a 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So there's what we got there. Moving on to my number 7. Look at the middle chart in there, and let's go find the answer to the cube root of negative 27. It means some number times itself 3 times is going to be negative 27. Well, that number happens to be negative 3. Now notice 3 goes into 9, 12, and 6. So we're ready to just go get our answer. This would be a to the 3rd, because 9 divided by 3 is 3. B to the 6th. How about b to the 4th? And c squared. And then we're done. Number 8, which happens to be the same as number 11, so we won't do number 11. This is going to become 3, so leave that 3 alone. Now we're in the 4th root, so now you're at the bottom of your sheet. The 4th root of 81 is 3. And then I'm going to have a d squared, a e to the 25th, and a f to the 3rd. Now to bring this home, 3 times 3 is 9, so I got 9, d squared, e 25, f to the 3rd. Here's my number 9, another square root. So the square root of 225, 15, g squared, h to the 3rd. 4 divided by 2, 6 divided by 2. Here's my number 10. I need the cube root of 216. So you're in the middle of your sheet there, and that's going to be a 6. I'm going to have an x to the 12 divided by 3 is 4. B to the 3 divided by 3 is 1. C to the 21 divided by 3 is 7. So, if you would, pause the video again. You and your friends see how you'll do on number 12 through 17. And welcome back. There should be the answers that you had between you and your friend. So compare those, pause the video if you need so you can kind of read them and find your error. And then I'm going to move on to number 18. Now, this next little group is what we covered last class. We're going to have to write 2 different radicals and then reduce it. So, I don't know the square root of 63. 2 does not go into 5 nicely, and 2 doesn't go into 9 nicely. So that's my cue. I need to write down the 4, and I need 2 square roots. So without a calculator, I need you to find me a number that goes into 63 that you know the square root of. And in this case, that's going to be a 9, and leaves me a 7. So 9 times 7. Now, I need a to the, remember there's a little 2 right there. I need the highest multiple of 2, less than or equal to 5. So I need a 4, which leaves a single a over there. And I need a b to the 8th, because 8 divided by 2 works, which leaves 1b left over. Now, if you've done a good job, this is just what we did. The square root of 9 is 3, times 4. So I've got 12 a squared b to the 4th times the square root of 7ab. And then there's my answer. Here's my number 19. Since I don't know the square root of 125, that's my cue that I'm going to need 2 radicals. A number that you know the square root of that goes into 125 would be 25 times 5. I need an x to the 10th and an x, and a y to the 16th, which leaves me 1 y left over. So I needed highest multiples of 2, less than 11 and less than 17. Now, if you've done a good job, you know this answer. That answer is going to be 5x to the 5th, y to the 8th, times the square root of 5xy. Here's my number 20. Once again, your cue when you need 2 radicals, I don't know the square root of 32, and 2 doesn't go into 21, 11, or 13. So I need 2 square roots. A number that you know the square root of that goes into 32. 16 times 2. D to the highest multiple of 2, less than 21. So I got 20 d's there. There's another one there. E to the 10th, which leaves 1 there. F to the 12th, which leaves 1 there. Now let's go get our answer. So I've got 4 d to the 10th, e to the 5th, f to the 6th, times the square root of 2d e f. So there's my answer. Here goes my number 21. So once again, I'm just going to write down that 5. I'll use it here in a little bit. I'm going to need 2 radicals. I need a number that you know the square root of that goes into 12. So that's going to be 4 times 3. C to the 8th, because 2 goes into 8, and a d to the 4th. So over here there is no c, but there is a d. Now to go get my answer, the square root of 4 is 2 times 5. So I've got 10 c to the 4th d squared times the square root of 3d. Here goes my number 22. Now this time we're working with cube roots. So your eyes ought to be on the middle of that half piece of paper. So I need something I know the cube root of and something I know the cube root of. Well, if you look at your sheet there, in that middle there, the numbers that you write, I know the cube root of 27 and 2. So I got 27 times 2. I need the highest multiple of 3 less than or equal to 11. So that's going to be a 9, which leaves me a y squared. And I'm going to have a z to the 21st, which leaves me a z over there. Yeah, because that was a 23. So now, let's go get our answer. The cube root of 27 is 3. Y to the 3rd, z to the 7th, times the cube root of 2 y squared z squared. And I'm going to go ahead and skip number 23 since it's covered, but now, if you would, pause the video once again, and you and your friend try number 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. After you get done, resume, and then compare your answers to my answers, if you would. So try those if you would. And welcome back. Hopefully you paused the video there. Those should be your solutions. So see how you did there. Now, I'm down to my last little group. It's kind of an area that we seem to struggle on, so I wanted to hit these a little bit. So here goes our 30, 31, 32, and 33. I need to reduce these if I can, so let's pick on 6 radical 20 first. I'm going to think of this as 6, something I know the square root of times something I don't, 4 times 5, plus 11 radical 5 because 5 doesn't reduce, minus 5 times, and I'm going to go a 9 times 5. So now let's simplify each one. The square root of 4 is 2, times 6 is 12, so I've got 12 radical 5, plus 11 radical 5, minus square root of 9 is 3 times 5, 15 radical 5. Now, these are like terms because they all contain a square root of 5. So my answer is going to be something square root of 5. To go get that something, I'm going to go 12 plus 11, which is 23, minus 15 is 8. So there's my answer, 8 radical 5. Now, I'm going to drop over to number 33 right now because these are the same kind of problem. So on my number 33, I've got 2. Out of 12, I'm going to do a 4 and a 3. Plus, I'm going to write down my 4. Out of 8, I'm going to go the square root of 4 and the square root of 2. Minus 3, and I'm going to go the square root of 25 and the square root of 2. So I'm getting the numbers from the top of your half sheet. The square root of 4 is 2 times 2, so I got 4 radical 3, plus 8 radical 2, minus 15 radical 2. These are like terms, so I've got 4 radical 3, minus 7 radical 2. And then you got to stop there because these are not like terms, so you can't combine them. Kind of like a 4x and a 7y. Now, let's go back up to number 31. I hope you recognize that this would be a FOIL kind of problem. So I'm going to go 3 times 2 is 6. And I'm going to go 3 times negative radical 8, so I've got minus 3 radical 8, plus square root of 5 times 2, I'm going to list that as 2 radical 5, minus, since these are both in the radicals, that becomes the square root of 40. And we're not done yet because when I look at it, the square root of 8 reduces, so does the square root of 40. So this now becomes 6 minus 3. I'm going to think of 8 as 4 and 2. I'm going to leave 2 radical 5 alone. And I'm going to think of 40 as the square root of 4 times the square root of 10. I'm going to go 6. Square root of 4 is 2 times 3, so I've got minus 6 radical 2 plus 2 radical 5 minus 2 radical 10. Now, there's no like terms there, so there's your solution. There's your solution. And then my last one for you. My number 32, I got 3 plus the square root of 5, quantity squared. Now, the way we're going to handle this, I'm going to ditch this squared and write this again. That's our cue to use FOIL. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 3 times the square root of 5, plus 3 square root of 5, plus the square root of 25. 3 radical 5 doesn't simplify, and there's 2 of them, so I've got 6 radical 5, but the square root of 25 is 5. How about my final answer? 9 plus 5 is 14, plus 6 radical 5. Okay. So guys, that reviews almost everything I've done in this chapter. On your review sheet, I did add in some F plus G, some F minus G, some F times G for also review, but those are the things I feared that we were struggling on the most and we hadn't seen for a little bit, so there's that. Hey, your assignment happens to be the next little worksheet, so get a good jump on that and have a great day.